everyone on this hot day. My name is Jamie Holt. I'm with the Valley Air District, but fortunately for you and for me, you're not going to be hearing me tonight. I'd like to introduce Sam McGill. Sam is with the Institute for Local Government. You might recall that we did bring on the Institute for Local Government to help us with facilitation. You met Crystal last time. I've heard rumors that Sam is just as good, if not better, than Crystal, and he's going to be facilitating the meeting tonight. Sam, it's your meeting.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you to everyone here for coming out, as Jamie said, on this very hot day today. Let me just do a quick look around the room and make sure folks can hear me okay. Is there any feedback or anything? No? Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining. This is my first meeting, so I'm here to learn just as much as all of you. By way of a little background, I've been doing facilitation and mediation for over 15 years now, and I've worked with a number of Valley communities on various issues on both air and water and flood. I'm really looking forward to jumping into the SERP process, and I know that you have kind of a full plate today, so I'll keep my comments as short as possible. Unlike some of the other meetings that all of you have participated in, we're switching things up a little bit and having more of kind of an open house and workshop format. You'll notice on the tables there are labels for specific subject areas that you'll also see represented in the SERP. We have incentives over here, land use, I'm still trying to see all of them. Oh, enforcement, mobile sources, urban sources, and then regulations and permitting here. What we'll ask all of you to do when the time comes is to rotate between the tables, and at each one of those stations there's going to be a district or CARB staff member to answer questions around the specific topic areas. Pretty straightforward, not much to it, but I would like to point out who's going to actually be staffing each one of these tables. So can I just get the district or CARB staff folks who will be at the incentives table in the back here? So they'll be joining up in the front of the room. How about regulations and permitting? Okay, it's right over here. Urban sources? All right, Heather. How about mobile sources? Okay, it's back in the corner here. Thank you very much. Enforcement, I know that's a hot topic. Wonderful, thank you. And then finally, land use. Who do we have for land use? Okay, so staff from the city will be at the land use section there. Like I said, it's really your opportunity to interact with each one of those various staff members and experts. We'll give you about 10 minutes at each station, and then I'll be just kind of coming around and checking on time, get you to rotate around and make sure that you have the opportunity to hear from all the folks. I did see one hand up. Was there a question? Yes, go ahead, Bam. There you go.
So I have a question about the process and the desired outcome of this exercise. It sounds so alike to what we did in the open house on July 31st. So given the fact that the revised draft was shared with us this morning and it's 171 pages long, it's really unrealistic that we had the chance to read it carefully and have additional questions or comments to the ones that we had when we met a couple of weeks ago. So I'm a little bit, surprised because when we began this process, you were not here yet. But back in January of this year, when we started meeting, it was our second meeting, we were told that any document that was going to be shared, at least that our collaborative was putting together, had to be shared with the Air District a week in advance. So I would want to say that that should be a rule that applied across the border, including these long documents that just were shared with us, a few hours before the meeting. So I would like to know what is the expectation of tonight's meeting.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think Jessica has a response.
Okay, testing. I can jump in and answer that, Naomi. So we intended the purpose of tonight's meeting, maybe we should have started with that, but we intended the purpose of tonight's meeting to be an introduction to the SERP. Obviously, it was just posted this morning. There's no way anybody has had time to look through this whole thing. So we're going to use the presentation tonight to walk you through kind of what's in the SERP, the structure of it, and then provide you time at this meeting to review the SERP, ask any questions that you had that were still outstanding with district staff. But definitely, if you don't want to rotate through a table or don't have a specific question for district staff, maybe take the time to review the document and just, kind of sit at a table, look through it, ask questions, come and ask us. We were also going to tee up the idea of adding an extra meeting next week and having the city attend that meeting with us and be able to kind of do a question and answer session at that time, since you haven't had time to review the document prior to the meeting. So kind of using this meeting as an introduction, giving you a week to review the full document, and then coming back in a week and kind of getting together to hear a little bit more of the committee's responses to it. If that works for the committee, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Naomi said, maybe a majority of the committee is going to be in a meeting in Sacramento, so maybe the 21st doesn't work. Maybe we can look into some different meeting dates with the city, kind of check our schedules and see what we can do, and then schedule that at a later time with the committee.
So if it's okay, I'll just finish running through the agenda and then we can jump into the slides. Perfect. And thank you for that question. I think that's really important clarification that we're kind of here to introduce all of you to the plan, since this is, as you correctly pointed out, the first time you're seeing this information. But we do want to give you the opportunity to interact with staff. And this is, it's not the final bite at the apple. You will have the opportunity to provide additional written comments. You can take a form with you. And the direction that I received from staff before the meeting was that you'd have at least a couple of weeks, maybe August 28th or so, to submit some specific comments, and that'll give you a little bit more time to review it as well. We'll run through all of this during the presentation and then afterwards as well. After the kind of workshop open house portion of the agenda, we also wanted to make sure to give you all the opportunity to ask specific questions in a large group format. I understand this is something that you've often done. We'll give committee members the opportunity to ask questions first and then go to folks from the general public. The final thing that I wanted to point out before I kind of be quiet here, we do have members of the public here. I would certainly invite all of them to join in at the stations as well and rotate among the groups and ask any questions. And then we'll come back together. I'll kind of be keeping time and checking in with all of you to make sure the process is flowing smoothly. But do take advantage of the opportunity, as Jessica mentioned, to flip through the plan and familiarize yourself, at least with the format, if not the content, since it was just released this morning. Let me check. Okay. I think that was it. I will, towards the end of the session, as I mentioned, I'll kind of facilitate a comment period for the committee members and then the general public. But I do want to hand it over to staff now to walk through some initial slides and just help kind of ground you in the content that we're here to discuss today. So with that, I will step aside and hand it over.
All right, thanks, Sam. So as you all know, we did publish the draft this morning. We wanted to say a huge thanks to the steering committee for all of your input and especially your time so far. It's been a really long process to get to this point. So we're really excited to have this draft plan out, and we're really looking forward to all of your review and feedback. So just to kind of start at the top as a review, I know we've gone over this before, but just to kind of reiterate, the SERP is a community emission reduction program developed for the community of South Central Fresno. And guidance for our SERP is included in CARB's blueprint for community air protection. That Appendix C of their blueprint details what needs to be in the SERP. So we use the blueprint as a guidance for developing our document. The main points that CARB is looking for to come out of the SERP is going to be understanding the community, community partnerships and public engagement, a description of what the community air quality challenges and concerns are, and then what can we collectively do to address these challenges and concerns. So we have a list of about 50 measures in this plan, which are the measures that we presented to you at the last meeting. Those haven't changed, but they are written in more detail, a little more fleshed out in the strategies that are contained in the plan. And those come from the district, CARB, and we're working really closely with the city of Fresno to also see how they can be involved in the plan. So it's kind of that collective, all the joint agencies coming to the table to address some of the issues in South Central Fresno. So finally, we have an implementation schedule included in those measures, as well as a separate enforcement plan, which are enforcement strategies, and then the compliance history for 3 years for South Central Fresno. And then we have included at the end of the plan metrics to track progress over time. So we have annual reporting that we'll be doing both to the district governing board as well as to the steering committee. And then we have a comprehensive 5-year report that's going to be due in 2024. And that comprehensive report will include air monitoring data, as well as kind of an overview of all of the projects and emission reductions that were implemented as a result of the SERP. So looking through the structure of this community emissions reduction program, we first have an executive summary, and then you get to the table of contents. You can see Chapter 1 is an introduction. Chapter 2 goes over the community partnerships and public engagement, which talks about the steering committee, kind of the steering committee process. Chapter 3 is understanding the community, which includes a community profile, as well as a technical analysis, which includes our community emissions level, our community level emissions inventory. Chapter 4 is the heart and soul of this SERP. Those are the strategies that were developed to address the community's top sources of concern, both based on the inventories and based on the feedback that we heard back from you at our prioritization exercises and during committee discussions. Finally, moving into Chapter 5 is our enforcement plan. So that has an analysis of both CARB and district enforcement, as well as a detailing of both CARB and district strategies. And then Chapter 6 is metrics to track progress, which, like I said, has both metrics for the annual reporting and the 5-year milestone. And then Chapter 7 discusses CEQA and the CEQA analysis for this plan. Looking at the appendices, we've got outreach material, which is a comprehensive collection of all meeting materials. It's about 600 pages, so we did not print that tonight, just in the interest of trying to save some trees. But it's all documents that you have all received copies of kind of through this process. So that is Appendix A. Appendix B is a copy of the steering committee charter. And we didn't print that either, but we did print Appendix C, which is our source apportionment and community inventories. Appendix D is the existing control of community sources of concern document, which was distributed a few meetings ago, so we didn't print that either. But Appendix E is going to be our facility risk reduction audits under AB 2588. It's the facility reassessment status for each major facility in the community. Appendix F is attachments to our enforcement plan. And that's all the appendices for this version. But the future iteration of the plan is going to include a comment and response appendix, where we include comments and district responses to things we've received through this process. So that's our SERP so far. There was some committee requests to type up comments that we'd received through our written, kind of some of our written exercises. So those are on your tables and also available in the back. We have compiled everything that we received at those written worksheets that were at the meetings and also mailed out. Those are on this document, which is written comments from worksheets at the June 12th and June 26th meetings. Those are just verbatim comments we received. And then similarly, written comments we received at the open house on July 31st. Those were typed up. We received some suggestions, and then there were also some written responses that were submitted directly on those for the CVAC submitted comments. We received some direct responses to the CVAC measures. And so that's just a verbatim typing of the comments we received back from that. So those are our documents for tonight. Just to kind of, actually I skipped a couple steps here. So we have, this is a first draft. Keep in mind, it's a first draft for discussion. We're planning to release another draft in late August or early September, depending on the feedback we receive from you and from the public. So like Sam said, we're looking for comments. We'd appreciate written comments, emailed, mailed to us, whatever's easiest for you, but written comments through August 28th. We do have our public workshop on August 28th, so we'll be incorporating comments that we receive at that workshop into our next version of the SERP, which will be published after that workshop. So then the next steps, we will have, we'll release the updated draft late August, early September. I'm going to pause for Naomi.
When are the final comments due again?
August 28th. Yep. So we've got our joint workshop. It's a public workshop where we're going to hear input on both the Shafter SERP and the South Central Fresno SERP. It'll be held at our district offices. So it'll be in Fresno and VTC to Bakersfield. So it's a public workshop. It's an opportunity for people that haven't been involved in this process or people that have been involved in the process to come to the district office, and it's just another opportunity to give official public comment on the SERP and the development process. So we really want to hear from everyone. Please come, make your comments, be involved in that process for sure, but just think of it as another mechanism to give your feedback. Next steps after that, we will be releasing a updated SERP for your review. Not the morning of the meeting, but we're going to have the next steering committee meeting on September 4th, unless we schedule the meeting next week. But our next scheduled meeting is going to be September 4th, so we'll be releasing the updated draft SERP prior to that meeting for your review. Going over upcoming dates and deadlines. So we are in August, early September timeframe. We're looking to get kind of finalized input on the SERP. In September, we're taking the SERPs, both SERPs for both communities, to our governing board. Governing board date is on September 19th. So we have to publish our SERP on September 12th for public notice requirements for our governing board. So expect the final version of the SERP to go out September 12th. After governing board adoption and approval on September 19th, we forward the final SERP to CARB by October 1st. After October, there's going to be kind of ongoing meetings, steering committee meetings about implementation, but CARB has also asked to use a couple of our scheduled steering committee meetings to come and hear your feedback on the SERP development process. So then in February, the CARB board is coming to Shafter to hear about both the Shafter and the South Central Fresno SERPs. And then finally, once it's approved by the CARB board, we'll have ongoing implementation. And of course, there's going to be implementation happening between now and then as well as we work to get these early emission reduction projects off the ground. So that is the end of my presentation. I can stop for questions. Looks like we've got a lot of questions. If they're related to this process, I can take those questions. If they're related to other things, we might divvy it up a little bit.
And just one note, I know there were a number of dates throughout the presentation for comment deadlines and meetings and that sort of thing.
Yep.
While you're rotating through your tables, I'll write those up. You can take a picture of them, make sure that you have them readily available there.
Yeah, and we will be emailing those dates out to the committee as well, just to make sure it's very clear where we're kind of asking for these comments by.
I'll run a microphone over here real quick. start here and then.
You stated September 12th is the date that the SERP will be published. That's the final published date. But you also said that's the date that it's going to be released publicly. So when do we get a chance to make our final comments? Or, yeah.
So we're going to be looking for your, we haven't honestly gotten out that far in advance. We'll be looking for probably most of the final comments at the community steering meeting on the 4th, but I would imagine we'll be giving some leeway kind of after that meeting, and we'll set like a kind of final, get us your comments by the state to be incorporated. We can work on setting that date and looking at schedules.
I just think the steering committee has the right to see the final copy before it's submitted.
Okay, so I think the version that goes out prior to the September 4th meeting, that's going to be our kind of first take at the final version. So we wouldn't expect big changes from that version to the published version, but that might be dependent on the feedback we get. Does that make sense?
Good evening. This is the initial draft. Chapter 4 has the strategies to reduce the cumulative exposure burden in South Central California. You have your top community sources of concern, and you have heavy-duty trucks as number one. And I'm sure that we submitted as one of our strategies, additional strategies, as a temporary approach to reducing some of the emissions is rerouting of trucks. But you guys don't have that in here.
That actually,
Or am I overlooking it?
it's in there. I think it's strategy 10 or 11. So we do have a description.
Where's it located? Is it in chapter 4 here?
Yeah, so if you go to the heavy-duty mobile sources on page 40, there's going to be numbered measures included for each section.
Yes.
And so let me find it for you. So it's going to be, I'm on page 50, and I'm not seeing it.
And the reason I'm concerned, that seems to be one of the immediate solutions.
It's page 52. And so we wrote that up and included in the SERP. We definitely heard the
Okay,
committee's
thank you.
feedback on that.
Yes.
But we are working with the city to kind of see what they can commit to, since they're the governing agency over truck rerouting.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. I would just ask folks, because most of the meeting's going to be carved up to answer specific questions. I'll ask folks to hold those types of questions for the individual breakout groups, just so that we can move forward. But thank you for the clarification. One more question from Genevieve.
Thanks. Thanks for the breakdown of the timeline. I was wondering when the final SERP is going to be brought before the San Joaquin Valley Air District Board.
That's on September 19th.
That one's the 19th.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions for clarification here? All right. Let me look to Jamie and Jessica. Was there anything else you wanted to mention before we break?
Now I think we're ready to do some breakout groups. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, wonderful. So as we mentioned, you'll have about 10 minutes at each one of the stations. If you have more questions, though, don't feel a need to rush. You can certainly stay longer than that 10 minutes. So we'll go ahead and break. Again, you have enforcement, land use, incentives, regulations and permitting, urban sources, and finally mobile sources in the back corner. Thank you all. All right, if you could go ahead and take your seats. Our goal is to get you out of here on time. As Jessica mentioned, the district would like to run through all of the deadlines that are coming up here. A lot of information. I know you've seen it once already, but we've received some comments online about it as well, and just wanted to make sure you all had a good understanding of what's coming down the road in just a couple weeks here. So Jessica, take it away.
Awesome. So I'm just going to review what I went over in the presentation. Our important dates that are coming up. August 28th, is going to be our comment deadline. So we'd like written comments from the Community Steering Committee and the public by that date. Also on August 28th is our public workshop to hear from members of the public, the steering committee, anyone who'd like to be involved in the process, to come to our district offices, whether that's in Modesto, Bakersfield, or Fresno, and give public comment about this kind of steering committee process and the draft SERP that's posted. So August 28th, red letter day, mark it down. After that, we have our September 4th Community Steering Committee meeting. Prior to that meeting, we will be publishing the updated draft that incorporates the comments we receive up until August 28th. So that's kind of a tight timeline. We've got a lot of work to do. We've received some really great comments tonight, so thank you all. And we're really looking forward to the public feedback kind of ongoing. Ivanka, you can take a comment. Let me grab the mic for you.
So I know tonight was like our first really touch on the final, but I did have a few comments that I just wanted recorded. We've probably said a lot of things in our individual groups, but we may not have heard what everyone else was saying.
For written comments, I know that at the beginning in the slides we mentioned, if you have any additional written comments, there are comment sheets.
No,
at the
that's for
back.
the public too. We as
Okay.
the committee have the right to get this
Yeah.
on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as soon as we run through these, we wanted to give the committee the opportunity to
Okay,
provide a
I
few
didn't know if you were
remarks
about
as
to
well.
wrap up and
Absolutely.
not.
Let me just go over a couple more dates
Okay.
really quick, and then we're going to be opening up for both steering committee comment and the public comment. So I'm going to pull this back up. It's okay. So just to reiterate, our governing board meeting where we take the SERP for governing board approval is September 19th, and the proposed SERP that we will be taking to the governing board on September 19th will be published 1 week in advance of that meeting on September 12th. Okay. Just to throw one more date into the mix, the city has agreed that September 27th is a good date for an extra steering committee meeting. So we wanted to tee that up with everyone else here and see if that date works with the steering committee. So if I don't hear any objections about September 27th, we're gonna go ahead and add that to the calendar. Monica. I'm so sorry, August. I'm already thinking September. August 27th is the date for the extra steering committee meeting where we'll have the city here to go through some of the comments we've received and give really specific answers to those comments. August 27th. I'm going to reiterate that. My brain's already in governing board land. Sorry, guys.
So we did want to get a read from all of the steering committee members and just kind of maybe a quick show of thumbs up. Does that seem like a reasonable date? I know it's not too far in the future, but I know there's also a lot of interest in seeing what's been received in terms of comments and the city's process.
Not between now and the next steering committee meeting that's scheduled for the 4th. Okay, so not hearing objections, I think we'll go ahead and tee that up on the calendar. So we're going to look into locations and confirm via email with the steering committee. We're going to try to have it here. So August 27th, extra steering committee meeting. August 28th is our public comment deadline as well as our public workshop, which will be at 5:30 in any of the district offices. And then we've got a September 4th community steering committee meeting. Proposed SERP is published on the 12th, and the governing board meeting is September 19th. With that, I'm going to say thank you all for being here. We're looking forward to receiving your comments on the draft SERP, and I'm going to turn it over to Sam for questions and comments.
Great, thank you. And just a quick reminder, if you do have any written comments you'd like to submit afterwards, there are forms on the back. But as was pointed out, there's some steering committee members who had a few questions and comments, so I wanted to go ahead and open the floor for a few minutes for that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
We've only just started really skimming this final one. And one of the things in there, there's a sentence about quantified emission reductions. but it's only including like district measures. But other statewide measures will achieve, and stating that other statewide measures will achieve additional reduction. So one of the concerns that we've asked for through this process is wanting to be able to see those quantified emission reductions and what are those goals. So a lot of times when we're trying to make these strategies without knowing, you know, what goals we can actually make, that's just problematic. Because we just don't, we don't know how to reach them if we haven't actually seen them.
Can I
go
jump
ahead.
in there really quick? So if you go to page 143 in the draft SERP, we did provide a table that quantifies the measures that we could quantify at this time. CARB was also able to quantify some of their statewide measures. And so like that clause says the CARB numbers aren't included in that total as of yet, but there are drafts, there are lifetime emission reductions that are draft, which were based on CARB's kind of estimate of what would be achieved by 2024 and 2029. So the district calculated these numbers. We haven't had a chance to do kind of quality control with CARB and make sure they agree with those numbers, so we didn't include them with the total. But for the next revision, we will be including CARB's numbers in that. So you can see on that table on page 143, it adds about 17 tons of PM 2.5 and about 1,100 tons of NOx to the strategy. So pretty significant emission reductions from those statewide strategies.
Okay. And then one of the other things, just from our first review, so much of this is still relying on incentives.
Yeah.
And I know as a committee, we really wanted to see more that relies on enforcement, new regulations, and also we're still going to be pushing for that stronger relationship and collaboration with the city and the other agencies. So to look in this SERP and to constantly say, well, we can't, we don't have authority is really disheartening, because we're really hoping that there can be more specifics that can say what you can do that's above and beyond what's already being done.
Absolutely. So that, I think the meeting at the 27th is really going to help address some of that, where we have the city come to the table and talk about specific commitments that they can be making as part of the SERP. Those are going to be also included in the next revision. So I think that'll hit on a lot of the points. We did include like the heavy duty truck rerouting measure. We included that with kind of the qualifier that, you know, we submitted it to the city to see what they're going to do or can commit to, or what they can look at. So their specific responses, hopefully, will be included in that next draft as well.
And the only other thing I know, one of the strategies we wanted to see was regarding pesticides. I didn't see anything in here. No, it's not as prevalent in this committee as it is to shafters, but it was something that we had requested, and unless I missed it, I just didn't see anything.
No, it's just a mention, but no extraction.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I believe there was one more question over here. Ma'am? Do you have a question?
¿Cómo lo vamos a leer nosotros que no sabemos inglés? Este paquete no está traducido en español. Gracias. Muy bien.
Basically, it is not translated to Spanish, so how are we going to read this, the ones that don't speak English?
Yes, so we are sending, it is a large document as you noticed. We just confirmed that we're working and already have sent it out to a professional translation system. Typically we do in-house translation. Because it's so long, it's gonna take an actual like sort of professional team to do it. And I don't have an exact timeline, but as a week or two is probably as fast as we can get it to you in terms of all of that written stuff. But in terms of some of the summaries of exactly right now what maybe like the specific measures are with the reductions. I know that I think of even the last meeting we had that in Spanish. As that continues to get updated, we will continue to update that in Spanish, which is really sort of that shorter summarization. Recognizing, of course, we'll get the rest of it as soon as we can in Spanish moving forward. Thank you.
We
If
didn't
you
get
could use
this.
the mic,
Sorry, like going back to the point that we didn't get this document until today, and they didn't even get it today. So before the next official meeting, what's the plan? How soon are you going to send both the English draft and the translated draft?
In terms of the next, so the meeting in September, which is sort of like the next official steering committee meeting, we will have it in English and in Spanish to the committee at, I would say, hopefully at least a week before that meeting. So I don't know, especially with it being sort of an outside translation system, I don't know exactly, but we will do it as quickly as possible. And if there's a way we can expedite that, certainly. And then, of course, recognizing that's some of the reason, too, we need some of those responses back ahead of the day we have to publish the CERP, because not only do we have to then finalize and draft it, but we also have to translate responses to all of those questions in Spanish or have some other service translate that. So that's sort of the reason we need things ahead of those September 12th dates, which is kind of what that week before is really for.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the steering committee members?
Thank you. I have been making the comment that we should add our public health data to this document so that we actually can see the important health aspects and the impact that pollution has. So things like asthma prevalence and incidence, chronic diseases, infant mortality, these are all data sets that we have actually available to us, and so I would love to see those included as an appendix for public health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. All right. Any other steering committee comments? And thank you all for bearing with us. I know we're getting towards the end of the evening here, but any other comments from the steering committee? All right. We can certainly come back, but I did want to give members of the public the opportunity to ask any questions or comments as well. So just looking in the back there, any additional questions or comments from members of the public?
Hi, my name is Sarah Sharp. I come from the California Public Utilities Commission. I work for Commissioner Guzman Aceves, but formerly very involved in Fresno air pollution issues, so I know most of you. We are currently, and I have been working with some of your staff at the Air District and with ARB and Karen, we are working on a report about how our Public Utility Commission programs that we authorize through the utilities, through, for here it would be PG&E, I believe, mostly, if not at all, how those could apply to some of the sources that you're interested in reducing. So we have a draft now that we're putting out for comments from ARB and others, but I'm hoping that we can get it to you. I didn't realize that we would need it within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully we can get it to you, but there's a lot of information about community solar, about the transportation electrification programs that are authorized that could pay for a lot of charging stations, and we're also looking at other opportunities to figure out what we do about power plants, which I know is an issue in this community, but also other communities, other programs that might be of interest to the other communities that are agriculture-based or in the ports or other things like that. So look for that. I'll try to get it out as soon as we can, and we hope it can be useful. We just really want to be a resource and be supportive of this effort.
And Sarah, is the idea then, would you want this group to provide comments on that, or is it something that you were hoping to incorporate into a larger strategy?
We wanted to just provide it as a resource to you all to decide if you wanted to include them in your plan or not. We could take feedback, but I think that the timing is not appropriate for that. So it's more us giving information that might be useful to you, hopefully. We did share information with the Air District about our community solar program, so I haven't seen if it's in here, but hopefully it's in here. I know in Shafter, in their plan, that they decided they wanted to propose some solar on affordable single homes. So things like that. So it's more of a resource. And then, you know, as there are other communities identified, we want to continue to be a resource. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. One more question over here. Thank you.
Tijuana's restaurant does not charbroil, yet their emissions are like double around that restaurant, and inside is double or more than PM 2.5 than the background every time I've been there. And when I went there, after they were closed in the night, there was only a difference from the background of 1 microgram per meter cube, which is insignificant difference in PM 2.5. Right, inside the restaurant and near the restaurant, every time I've been there, and downwind of it, every time I've been there, it was over 2 times the amount of background PM 2.5. Other restaurants were almost as bad.
Thank you for
Mexican
that.
restaurants were almost as bad, and open grills with burnt oil on the grill.
Thank you for that comment. Anything from the district you'd like to speak to that? No? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Any other questions from members of the public or the steering committee? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming tonight. At this point, if there's no more comments, again, I would just remind people there are comment sheets on the back table there if you'd like to submit any additional written comments. For members of the committee, again, just a big reminder, August 28th is that comment deadline. You can submit them via email, mail, however you like. Just make sure to get it in by then. Thank you all.